All right, welcome back to Vicky 3 Academy. I'm Walker, and here we are discussing a basic country guide for the East India Company, one of, if not the strongest tags in the game. So what's going on with the East India Company? Why do I say it's one of, if not the strongest tag in the game? Well, let's first just assess like where it would be if it was an independent country, because keep in mind that this rank is limited. If you're ever a subject of anybody else, you can't be a great power. You can't be a higher rank than your leader. And so what that means is if you were independent as the East India Company, you would immediately at game start be the rank 4 power, because you'd be slotted right here in between Russia and Austria. So you start outrageously strong in terms of the size of your economy, simply because you do have, like, remember where all the pops are in the world. They're all like right here. This is where everyone on Earth lives. There are some people who like accidentally ended up elsewhere, but this is where they are. This screenshot right here, this is where humans are. And so you start with a lot of the humans, plus you start with a lot of the technology the humans have developed over time. That's pretty good. Starting with you start with Napoleonic warfare. Like, basically the only thing you don't start with is this holy trinity of railways, which is a very, very fixable problem. You even start with empiricism. Like, holy crap, you start with a lot of tech as the EIC, which is great, because not only do you start with a whole lot of tech, but sort of like the nature of a subject relationship and the way that you interact with the market, it does depend on like what's going on back in the home country versus you. And so the smaller you are in comparison to the home country, the more it's going to be hard to understand what's going on in terms of your market, right? Because you don't know how much of the demand is yours and how much of the supply is yours, unless you're like the East India Company under the UK. If you industrialize really, really quickly, you don't need to worry about who is determining the market in regards to the British, because you are determining the market, right? You're 122 million population versus 26 million. Okay, all right, Great Britain, live your best life, I guess. But the moment that you start to industrialize as India is the moment that you can start to realize that like they have no power here. But unfortunately for you, there are some people who have some power inside your country, and namely, it's the landowners. I reorganized the government a little bit. You start with this outrageously strong landowner, so you're gonna need to get rid of them, because this is also a moderate landowner who's a permanent fixed figure. You can't re-roll this into being something useful. He's always going to be terrible, and you always need to get rid of him. And so you got a lot of stuff that you need to do as the EIC. As I mentioned, you have this very powerful landowner, and that very powerful landowner is going to have some serious laws supporting them, right? Legacy slavery, serfdom, hereditary bureaucrats, peasant levies. You're even in traditionalism. Whoa. A lot of this stuff is going to be holding you back. Some of it, like the traditionalism and the hereditary bureaucrats, it looks like on the surface you need to keep, because otherwise your bureaucracy is just going to be infinity. But don't sweat that. These laws are terrible. Just build more bureaucrats if you need to. God knows you've got the money. And so don't worry about that stuff. Don't worry about having to build more bureaucrats. Get rid of hereditary bureaucrats, get rid of traditionalism, get rid of serfdom, get rid of slavery, get rid of land-based taxation. And like, build a good government that actually like takes care of the enormous number of humans that you start with. And then you go, all right, Walker, easier said than done. Well, not really. It's going to be pretty easy for you too, because right now, at least in 1.0.6, what you can do as the EIC is you have all these puppets, all these princely states that are under your control. To give you a little bit of historical background, of course, you are going to disintegrate during the Sepoy Mutiny. You're going to have like a massive rebellion that's going to cause a lot of disruption, and it's going to lead to the UK seizing direct control over India, and forming the British Raj instead of the East India Company. And so you just avoid that. You can do that pretty easily if you use the resources available to you. As I highlighted, you have access to like a lot of really sweet weapons and technology and stuff, but you also have access to an overlord who's going to protect you, and you have access to puppets who are going to protect you. So just pick a fight with the landowner, get rid of them, and then get your laws changed. But that's going to help you in regards to averting your mutiny. So avert mutiny. This is the thing that's going to like kind of be the sort of Damocles over you as the East India Company. If you don't do something, then you are going to die. And so it's going to be pretty bad if you get transformed into the British Raj. They're going to take away all these subjects, and you're going to feel pretty bad. But you can avoid that by just puppeting everyone around you. Consolidating the colonial rule by just puppeting stuff is a sweet way to do it. And then, of course, you get to do Reform the Indies. Reform the Indies is the one that's like a little bit harder, because this one you just need to be stronger than everybody, and guess what? You're stronger than everybody. You just need to just do diplomatic plays, and then you solve this issue. But Reform the Indies is going to require you to improve GDP by 50%, have free trade or mercantilism, land-based taxation gone, serfdom gone, slavery banned. So that's tough. That's tough. It's going to be tricky. It's going to require you to do a lot of fighting against your landowner. But that's okay, because you can just beat the crap out of them all the time. That's I think your main reform goal right now as the EIC, at least in 1.0.6, is just like anytime your landowners are getting mad, just fight them and win. Because you will. I promise you will. It might be a little spookier if you decide to go independent from Great Britain. But you can win. You got a lot of allies, and they are not going to have a lot of friends. Just try not to be a jerk to the other great powers until you've successfully industrialized a little bit. But there's another thing that's going to help you, of course, is that you can get corn laws, which is going to be sick. Because if you can destroy the landowners once, let them rebuild their power a little bit, and then do corn laws by switching into export. You can't do that while you're part of the British market, which is why you do need to become independent at some point. Just like figure out when you want to become independent, and then you can use corn laws. You may not even end up needing to use corn laws if you can just like change all of your laws by relying on rural folk and armed forces. You should be pretty good. So why are you relying on rural folk and armed forces? Well, it's sort of like the nature of the setup for you here is the EIC. You do start with this enormously powerful landowner, which isn't even like outrageously supported by a whole bunch of laws. It's got laws supporting it, but this is not Japan. It's just because there's so much wealth here, and you haven't really built anything other than agricultural stuff. So just build stuff other than agricultural stuff, and you should be all right. You'll probably want to build up the industrialists and the intelligentsia. One of the things that's weird about you as the EIC in comparison to other countries that start with a powerful landowner, you cannot rely on the Anglican Church to help you, because the Anglican Church, it's gonna, just like all other devout, it's going to make it so that only pops that follow the state religion are going to be able to associate with the Anglican Church. And guess what's up with your state religion over here, right? Let's look at our religion. Where are the Protestants here? There's none of them. There's a little bit in terms of political strength, but they're not even the dominant force. And of course, the method by which pops convert religion is based off of religious discrimination, and you start in total separation. So like, unless you do something weird, your devout are never going to be strong, and so you cannot rely on them to help you fight the landowner, which is why I think you gotta just bite the bullet and just fight them IRL. You can build up your intelligentsia pretty quickly. You start with a 15 stack of construction, but look, your economy is enormous. It's enormous. Just build stuff. I don't want to spend 20 minutes telling you when and how and where to build things, but your economy is enormous. You can have 150 construction pretty quickly. Just be aware that you're going to have some concerns in regards to your infrastructure more than anything else. So you're going to need to get down to railways really fast. In fact, this might be the literal path right here, is get yourself some railways. You are part of the British market, so you don't have to go into mechanical tools first. If you don't want to, you could go into atmospheric engine, then tools, and go ahead and start using the engine pumps in your mines, and then pick up steel stuff later, because like there's always going to be steel floating around the British market. But it just depends on like what sort of development you think you want to go through first. But it's not going to be that complicated. Just go ahead, get yourself into iron frame construction, do a bunch of construction, and then build up build up the IGs that you want to associate with. My recommendation, of course, is to build up your intelligentsia if you're playing as the EIC pretty quickly, which you can do by moving into appointed bureaucrats, building a bunch of bureaucrats, and then like paying them well. One of the things that I see people doing all the time right now is like running low government wages, which if you hate your intelligentsia and you want them to be weak, yeah, you can do that. But I like my intelligentsia and I'd prefer that they be strong. And so I'm not going to run low government wages, and I encourage you to also not run low government wages if you want to do stuff like pass multiculturalism as the EIC, which guess what? You want to pass multiculturalism as the EIC. So, you know, like, make sure that everything that you're doing in game lines up with your actual stated goals, because this is usually pretty bad. This is usually really, in fact, really, really bad, because it's just going to empower the wrong pops, depending, again, on what your goals are in here. And your goals in here are just to change everything. All these laws are terrible. This is not a masterpiece of horribleness like Japan's are, but these are pretty bad, and you just, like, you can't mess around with this stuff. Get yourself a good set of laws. Avert your mutiny by subjugating everyone around you and going in and defeating the landowner with military assistance of both your puppets as well as your overlord. You can usually get Great Britain to help you put down your landowners because you're the legitimate government and they're just a bunch of angry rich people. So, like, for whatever reason, the UK is going to help you there. And so you can destroy them pretty easily, get through the changes that you need to do in order to reform the Indies, avert your mutiny. I bet you can probably do that in 10 years, and then throw the British out. Because by the time that you've done all that stuff and you're powerful enough, you do have a little decision that you can do to annex a little more territory for the company. That's usually pretty good. It does mean that it's actually 5 years for whatever reason this tooltip is wrong, but you can continue to absorb parts of India as you expand. Yeah, so I think that's the basic plan here for the East India Company. Don't be afraid of cutting your ties from Great Britain. They are really helpful at the beginning of the game. But like your economy is largely going to just wildly outpace theirs because it's huge. It's huge. You start with 27 million peasants. You can support so much construction, and that's 27 million peasants without even having incorporated a lot of your peasants yet, right? Like 11.6, or the big boy, right? The Sikhs. Like, do not be shy as the East India Company, because you're so big. You're so big and so strong, and you can definitely project power in a way that's terrifying and wondrous. All right, that's Walker, and that's a basic country guide for the East India Company. I hope that that this was helpful. If you've played the EIC, let me know. But I think I'm gonna just do maybe just an avert mutiny speedrun today. I think that would be fun. I think that'd be really fun. So yeah, look forward to that. Almost certainly gonna do that immediately after this. I think I got myself jazzed. All right, that's Walker. Take care.